Hello and welcome to the Jenna and Tosh show for middle of February, if you're playing along chronologically. So just to put it out there, because I know I'm kind of still forgetting when we are and what we're doing some days. How about you, Tosh?
I'm lost. I'm like lost in the abyss of, I'm still thinking it's probably, 2020, December 800th or something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And today, I have to say, I know I keep ripping myself because every time I'm like, oh, we have such an exciting guest today.
Here it
Today
comes.
Today we have a guest that I am just absolutely blown away that in 3 seasons we have not had on the show already.
I have to agree with you.
Both of us know Carolyn Dube, who's going to be our guest today. And Carolyn is just, you are a ball of energy, and we could talk to you about so many things, about being now a fellow twin mom, about being military spouse, about being a firefighter's wife, about life in general, because moving in a pandemic, we could talk about growing up and going to the same high school.
Yeah.
We've got a whole mini series that we could do. But today we get to focus on your day job, which is absolutely incredible. And I want you to tell us what you do.
Awesome. Jenna and Tosh, thank you so much for having me. My name is Carolyn, and I am the Executive Director of Fertility Matters Canada. We are a registered Canadian charity and the only organization in Canada that supports patients who are struggling to build their families because they need fertility treatment or an alternative method to help them build their families. So we provide support, education, resources, and we advocate for equal access to care across Canada because it's not very easy to get care if you're struggling to have kids.
Wow. Okay. So I know Jenna and I both know that you have a reason for being a part of Fertility Matters. So how about we start with your story?
Sure. So I was actually thinking about this morning, and I can't believe it's been almost 9 years since we were diagnosed as an infertile couple. We have male factor. We were in our early-ish 30s, just married, and then, a logical next step for most people is you're going to start your family, and it was never something that crossed my mind. Never thought it would be an issue. And then it wasn't happening. I was fortunate enough that a previous manager of mine worked in the fertility industry. And so I reached out to her and she said, yeah, you don't wait. Typically, what the recommended time frame for someone to see a doctor, or if you're seeing your doctor and you're not getting pregnant, most people say you have to try time intercourse unprotected for a year before someone will look at you for having a fertility issue. And it's not always the case. So she told me to go to my doctor, which I did. And I immediately did some sort of workups on my husband, who at the time was in the military. So it was quick access for him and me. And the issue came back as a male factor issue, which also was shocking because I didn't really realize that male infertility was a thing. And now know that at least 33% of the time, the issue is male, the other 33% of the time is female. And the last third is actually unexplained. Physicians can't figure out exactly why you aren't conceiving. So we got that diagnosis, and it was literally like someone had knocked the wind out of my sails. I was shocked. I was sad. I was frustrated. I knew very little about fertility treatment, what that meant. I just knew it was very expensive, and how the heck was I going to pay for this if that's what we needed to do? At the time we were living in Halifax, so we were referred to the fertility clinic there, and it was an amazing experience. By the time you actually get in, it's quite a bit of time to get into, especially the Atlantic Canadian fertility clinics. And we found out that we needed to do IVF because my husband's sperm count was incredibly low. It was there, it's just that the numbers of sperm that we needed weren't as high as they needed to be. So we went through the IVF cycle and transferred an embryo, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm pregnant. You have to wait. You do this transfer, you go through this whole process of needles and injections and early morning appointments. It takes months actually of your life. And then had a transfer. You have to wait 2 weeks to find out through a blood test if you're pregnant, and it didn't work. And that was December 18th, and it was just before Christmas. And that was literally the worst day of my life. It's crazy because I thought I was pregnant, and why wouldn't I be? And so it really kind of sets you kind of back a bit. And so we went on to do some more embryo transfers. I did get pregnant the next cycle with my son, who just turned 7 this past December. And we had future treatments, and now my twins are 2.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something I want to talk to you about, we talk an awful lot about women's mental health when it comes to this. And I don't know if you can speak for your husband on this or not, but how was he affected by hearing that information?
Thank you for asking that. Because now that we're removed from that fertility journey, we've talked about it a lot. And Brian says to me, no one ever asked me how I was feeling. He said, in fact, Carolyn, you never asked how I was feeling. And it's true. I was so wrapped up, and because the female, if you're going through specifically an IVF cycle, yes, male provides the sperm sample, but the women are the ones or the females are the ones who have to do the egg retrieval and do all the injections and the early morning appointments. And everybody says, if they know you're going through the treatment, how's so-and-so, who's typically the female. So men's health is incredibly affected, and it's not something we talk about. Men also deal with it differently. I found online supports. I advocated for myself. I found a group of close-knit women who are also going through similar experience. Brian didn't have that. Men don't talk about their fertility challenges, especially probably in the early stages, and especially if you didn't know that it was going to be an issue, and if the issue ends up being part of the male. The male is part of the problem. It affects much more. Men think about it differently. It's a sexual thing for them versus this reproductive thing for females. And so, yeah, it's a really important thing. The research out of Harvard actually shows us that a diagnosis of infertility has the same effect on someone's mental health as a cancer diagnosis. And yet we don't treat it the same. We don't talk about it. People don't talk about their infertility because it takes people into the bedroom. It's like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why can't I have a baby? And when I think back, you both know I'm very conversational. I'm more of an extrovert. I talk about things. I can get vulnerable, and I'm okay with that. But it was months before I told anybody, other than one close friend who I used, previous manager. Because I was embarrassed. And it's crazy to think that if that's how I felt, someone who had a close network, close family, and I didn't tell very many people, I can imagine how other people feel, that isolation and not knowing exactly what to say.
I think it's so wonderful that people like you, who are that extroverted advocate personality, are able to stay in that community afterwards and to play this role to change the discussions and to really move things forward. And I know that one of the things that you've been working a lot on with that through Fertility Matters is not just talking about the emotional impacts of fertility, but also the economic, financial impacts of it.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that side of it, both from that kind of personal family perspective, but also overall what you're doing as an agency.
Yeah, okay, that'd be awesome. So fertility treatment in this country, if that's something you need to do, is very expensive. And there's not equal access to care in terms of government funding. There are 5 Canadian provinces who provide funding or some sort of funding to couples or individuals who need to pursue treatment options. The average cost of IVF, just the cycle, like the medical procedure in Canada, is $20,000 per cycle. And you're not guaranteed a baby at the end, The most people who end up going through treatment are sort of young. They just, started a relationship, maybe purchased a home or a vehicle. They're probably newer in their career. And many people don't have $20,000 sitting in a bank account to just hand over to a clinic, because all payments need to be made up front. And like I said, there's no guarantee. So it's incredibly challenging. So lots of people end up taking, time off work. There's a lot of early morning appointments. It's also something you're not talking about with your employer. Most people aren't telling their employer when they're planning to get pregnant. It's announced after, when you're, several months into a pregnancy. And so there's a lot of isolation and that fear to talk to your employer about it. So it affects productivity at work too. So that financial barrier is incredibly cumbersome, and it's a huge barrier to care in this country. Globally, the need for IVF treatment is 1,500 cycles per million population. And in Canada, we're in around 350 cycles per million population. So it's incredibly low, the utilization rate for this highly, highly, highly effective technology. I mean, if you're using fertility treatment, it's, a success rate of a pregnancy, again, not guaranteed, but in around 50 to 60% success rate per cycle, which is high. It used to be 20%. In fact, when everything's timed perfectly and you're having unprotected intercourse, it's about 20%. So it's much higher than just kind of getting pregnant on your own. But the financial piece is huge. And so as an organization, we're advocating for more governments to become involved. It's not a universal healthcare piece, and we know that governments in Canada, healthcare provided provincially. So the 5 provinces that do provide funding are Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island just announced a program. They all look very different. The challenge for the majority of people is that you still have the upfront cost and then you're reimbursed after. Parts of those costs, typically $5,000 to $8,000. And people are taking a line of credit or remortgaging homes, moving in with parents, because, building a family is so important to many of us, especially when birth rate in Canada is so low. So recently, as in 1st of February, we launched a program called Fertility Matter. It's a joint project between Fertility Matters and Conceivable Dreams. They're a patient advocacy group in Ontario. And the whole idea is that we believe that building families and providing access to care is sort of all stakeholders need to play a part. Governments, patient advocacy groups, employers, insurance providers, so that it's a holistic approach to family building in Canada. And so we're encouraging insurance providers and employers to look at their what they're providing in terms of access to care. And most employers do not have fertility benefits attached to their health benefits. In fact, some fertility drugs are listed as lifestyle drugs under plans that are not covered, similar to Viagra. They're listed under the same category. So very explicitly say does not cover fertility drugs in many benefits plans. And this is 2021. Families are not just heterosexual couples. There are lots of single people. There are people in the LGBTQ community who will need to use assisted reproductive technologies if they choose to use a family or to build a family. This is a comprehensive system that needs to work, and we need to work on it together, and the conversations need to be open so that people understand that supporting employers through benefits attracts and retains young talent, and people want to, women want to freeze their eggs so that they can build their career and have a baby later in life, and they find the right partner or maybe have a baby by themselves. So it's a bigger conversation. We need to continue to advocate for that.
I think that's such an important part that probably a lot of people don't think about it in that very kind of corporate, talent retention discussion, which is hugely important. Like you said, we're talking about people finding this out right at the start of their career, right? It's such a huge issue.
Absolutely. I agree. And when we can have that conversation, look at the companies that do provide amazing benefits. Google, Starbucks. Starbucks provides amazing coverage to their baristas. Manulife just announced an incredible program in Canada, and includes, adoption and surrogacy and gamete, so eggs, sperm, egg, sperm, embryo donation. It's all wrapped into one, including $10,000 a year per family member for mental health support. It's incredible. And so they place a priority on family building. They want young talent coming to their organization, and they want them to stay. And so this is part of what they're doing. And we're thrilled to be working with them to learn more and help educate other employers.
So as a family that your oldest then would have been born in Nova Scotia.
Yes.
Right. And then going through the process again in New Brunswick, where it's covered. How do you find that different? So I almost feel like your first pregnancy was probably in many ways more stressful, but also having that money factor on it too. I can't even imagine. Yeah,
so that's a good question. So Nova Scotia provides zero coverage from the government side. My husband at the time was in the military, and he paid actually for 85% of my drug coverage. So drugs are in around $8,000 to $10,000 per cycle. So, our total bill was in the $14,000 range probably. And then in New Brunswick, our bill was still in and around the same, say $15,000. And the province of New Brunswick provides a one-time grant. So once you've paid for your fertility treatment, they will refund you 50% of the cost up to $5,000. So it's nice. It's not perfect, but I don't complain. My husband also now is a firefighter with the city who has an amazing drug coverage and pays for 100% of our fertility drugs.
Whoa.
So
awesome.
Way to go, Moncton.
Way to go, City of Moncton. So it's huge. That's almost 50% of the costs covered. And I need to give them kudos because that's an amazing resource for all of your employees.
Wow. That is, like, just the sound of that, I'm like, when does a company cover 100% of anything for a lot of medical issues, right? Like, that's amazing.
When I called to because that wasn't my experience. Well, my experience before was, I would go to the cash or go to the pharmacy to pick my drugs up, and it'd be $150, $200 because, I'd be picking $4,000 worth of drugs up every second day, sort of. Wow. And then when I went to the till to pay my bill, and they said $5, please. I kind of smiled. Because I'd had that experience. It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing because it's huge.
Yeah, like you said, Tosh, like the mental health factor of that difference between your two pregnancies must have been such an interesting thing to look back on now.
Yeah,
to be able to see those differences in the experience because of the different things that were available.
Exactly.
So I have a question. My pregnancies were both high risk pregnancies. And are you, like, when you go through IVF, are you treated like a high risk pregnancy, or are you watched?
Yeah.
Good.
So it depends where you are. My first pregnancy I was under the age of 35, so not geriatric according to
yes, I love that we're geriatric.
Gynecology obstetrician. So the thing that can make people with fertility struggles more high risk is that if you had to do IVF, you've probably got an underlying fertility issue, endometriosis, PCOS, some sort of uterine issue, previous abdominal surgery. So the reality is, infertility, the World Health Organization says infertility is a medical condition. It's the result of having another medical condition. So people who have had, Crohn's or colitis and have had major abdominal surgery, well, that can really affect your reproductive tract. And, so it's a result of another medical condition that's actually covered, and you're under, because you live in Canada, those conditions are taken care of in Canada. So it's the result of something like that. So you're usually, depending on the situation, you're followed more. The incidence of multiple births is also a little higher. Best practice in the fertility world is to transfer a single embryo. We know that the success rate of achieving a pregnancy and delivering at full term, like a full term healthy baby, is in and around the same as transferring two embryos. So most clinics in Canada will transfer one if you're healthy female under the age of 37. So what makes it higher risk is that if there are individuals who are transferring two embryos and you get pregnant with twins or higher order multiples, that makes you obviously higher risk. So you're followed more closely. So it kind of depends on the situation.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I think that's an important point too, that people who might have an older idea of fertility treatments
Mhm.
would be misinformed about, because it didn't used to be best practice to just
No.
transfer one. And that's when we used to have those, bizarre cases we'd hear about in the
Yes.
news of very high order multiples
Abdomom.
showing up.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's their name. I can
Yeah.
think of it. Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that doesn't happen anymore, because, and as a result, it's a healthier mom, healthier pregnancy, healthier baby. I know you both have had high risk pregnancies, so that fear and anxiety that's sort of with you for the entire length of your baby's, gestation.
Yeah. I can't even imagine having the added pressure of like, this has to work. Kind of,
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
I'm going to be 20 grand in debt,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't.
yeah.
That's the thing. That's exactly it. And many
a risk.
people who have gone through the treatment actually they never enjoy a pregnancy. Very few days, because they're always worried. Lots of times, if you've got a fertility issue, miscarriages, they're entwined. You can have a higher rate of miscarriage. Maybe you're miscarrying because you have a fertility issue and you don't know that yet.
Or
So
stress.
it's the stress, and you can't really let go and enjoy a pregnancy,
Yeah, that's my case for sure.
Yes.
I hated being pregnant.
Mm.
So happy to be done with that,
Yeah.
which is a horrible thing to say during a fertility podcast, but
No, it's okay. It's okay.
we got the good at the end of it, right? Like,
Absolutely.
okay, right. I
Like,
hate
those
to
are
wrap
those
this up,
discussions we have
but-
to have more, right?
That's
yes,
right.
exactly.
Absolutely. Mhm.
So we have to wrap it up. So Carolyn, where can people find everything they need to know about the amazing organization you work for?
So you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So at Fertility Matters, at fertility_Canada is our Instagram handle, and fertilitymatters.ca. And you can find all of our free online support groups and join and find and connect with a community to help support you through your fertility journey.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Carolyn. And you know that this is not going to be the last time.
I'm going to come back anytime.
Okay, good.
Jenna Tosh, thank you so much for highlighting this incredibly important topic. It's so prevalent in our society, and we need to talk about it openly.
I agree. There needs to be more women like you that are more than willing to get out there, and men too, who need to get out there and I don't know. I don't want to say embarrassed, but that's exactly it.
Vulnerable. That's the word, Carolyn. Perfect.
Yeah,
we all
absolutely.
need to be a little bit more vulnerable.
We do. Because you never know who life you're going to change.
So true. Perfect. Okay. Thanks again. And thank you everybody for watching and listening. Leave us a review if you've got time. We'd love to hear from you.